What's up? What's up? How you doing, everyone? Welcome to the fourth quarterly meetup at Gaming Americas. This year has been an incredible journey throughout the dynamic world of gaming. It was filled with inspiring discussion. We had so many innovative ideas being shared over here. And of course, the collaborative spirit that have been pushed in our industry has reached new heights. So while we may be closing the chapter on this year's meetups, being the final meetup of the year, the excitement doesn't end here. We're already gearing up for next year with more opportunities to connect and learn. So thank you for being part of this vibrant community, and let's make this meetup a memorable one, and let's set the stage for even more thrilling journey in the year ahead. So once again, welcome, and let's make the most of our time together. I have the pleasure to moderate the first session, which is going to be focused on the Latin American market. It's titled LatAm, the New North America. So this panel asks whether the Latin America is the most important market in the world right now. A lot of attention has been given to the US, but does this region provide a bigger opportunity? Or our participants of the panel will discuss what the awakening of the Brazil means for operators and suppliers, including some of the challenges they will face in their quest to crack the market. So it will also cover some of the other markets that should be on the radar of operators and suppliers, and what the jurisdictions will have in store over the next 12 months, including who they believe will be the biggest winners and why. So why not introduce the great experts of this panel, starting with Jamie Shea, CMO at Strive Gaming. Jamie, hi, nice to see you.
Hello, it's nice to be here. Thank you.
Wow, you're so small.
Oh, am I?
Yeah,
I have
on
a
the
new
screen.
camera, so you never know.
No worries. It looks great. So, hi, Kevin Reid, CEO at 1x2 Network. Hi, Kevin.
Hi, pleasure.
Allan Petrilli, MD at Acquire.bet.
Hey, Zoltán. Hey, everyone. How's it going?
Michael Pedersen, CCO at Livespins.
Hey, Zoltán, everyone. Nice to be here.
And last but not least, Chuck Robinson, CRO at Better.
Hi, hello, everybody.
All right, so let's quickly dive in, and I will ask you to quickly introduce yourselves, say a few words about your background and your company. So let's start with Jamie.
Super excited to be here. Been in the sportsbook industry for 30 years, working a lot. Started out in the retail space in Las Vegas, and then moved on to the digital space with DraftKings, and now I'm with Strive Gaming as CMO. We are a B2B platform. Just super excited to be looking at this next step and the evolution of sports betting and iGaming with Brazil, and looking back at what we've already learned from the US.
All right, thank you so much. Kevin.
Hi, Kevin Reid, CEO of 1x2 Network. We're a games provider, provide RNG content, and we've been around as a company since 2002. I've been in charge for about 3 years now as CEO, but before that I was CCO, running commercial for the organization, and I've just kind of worked up from the original when I joined the industry from investment banking. And yeah, look, I think probably you're going to echo everything that everybody else has said, but I think that there's some real exciting opportunities coming in LatAm, and so really excited to address the topic.
All right, Allan Petrilli.
Hey, everyone. Managing Director at Acquire.bet. I've been in a few of these with Zoltán, and I believe actually some of you in the past. Been in the industry since 2011. Worked my way up from working at tracking platforms to running strategic partnerships at a few user acquisition networks. And then most recently was VP of sales at a company called Analytics that does tracking for affiliate programs and paid media. Still involved with that company. But we have a large agency/traffic business called Acquire.bet. where we run a large international and US focused affiliate network. We do paid media on behalf of brands, and we have a few owned and operated affiliate properties. So heavily involved in user acquisition, and obviously excited about the massive opportunity in South America, and to discuss some of the kind of opportunities and challenges it presents.
Thank you. Michael.
Hey, Michael Pedersen, Chief Commercial at Livespins. Livespins is a game provider based off of live streaming. So we have taken the Twitch streaming experience, but turned it into a game. So the players of the operators can bet behind or bet with streamers. Yeah, Latin America is definitely a market that we have a lot of interest from, and we are very active exploring. So yeah, look forward to this conversation.
Awesome. Chuck.
Hi, everybody. Chuck Robinson, CRO with Better. Better is a content provider that we primarily focus on esports and some niche sports for next-gen quick gaming, quick betting markets. As well, we have a casino arm that we also provide live online casino. And for us, yeah, we're very, very excited to be participating in this, as well as entering the LatAm market. We've had some already initial clients that we've captured as a result of it, and kind of started to really experience how flourishing that market really is. I personally have been in the market for over 10 years, primarily originally focused on platform sales, but now more content-based, and looking to see where we can, kind of bring our content that we think is very attractive to those people in Brazil and the LatAm market.
All right. So I have many questions for you guys. So let's just fire away. First question is for the whole panel. We will take turns to reply. So Latin America seems to be a key market for operators and suppliers right now. So what makes it so important? Jamie, you go first on this.
No, I think it's just the population and the fan base is going to be gigantic. And so I think that, you're looking at, US size portions, 2 years ago, and seeing how that's just going to rise up. I think that, it's very interesting to see what they've put into their bill in Brazil to say what, like with the 12% tax and where that money is going to go. And I think, they've hosted major sporting events. It's ingrained in the culture. So I think for us to see, where this can go and where it can lead, I think you are talking about, just mass portions of people having that excitement of getting to bet on the games, and then getting to, have iGaming. They have a very big growing middle class population. There is that, the money that can be spent, still keeping in mind responsible gaming and making sure that people aren't spending more than they should. But I just think that it's a really cool market to be getting into, and exciting to see, the comparison of how it was in the US when PASPA was repealed to having it now in LatAm as well.
All right. Thank you so much, Kevin.
I think to just kind of follow on from what Jamie kind of mentioned, when you consider regulation, certainly post-COVID, and we had this in Europe straight after COVID, with kind of different markets realizing that regulation was a very important thing. Certainly in different markets that had regulations in, they could protect the population. And when you had other markets that went through it and looked at it as in terms of, well, there's revenue, there's people that are going to gamble anyway, and that they might as well actually gamble in a regulated environment, and then there can be tax for good causes and things like that, bringing in. And as Jamie kind of mentioned, the way that Brazil have done it, and when I say done it, then it's not done yet, obviously, but like the way that they're kind of proposing is and stressing what it's going to be, the tax money is going to be spent on, and being sensible about this is kind of a key thing. And I think that's then kind of just echoed around South America, but it kind of started in the US as well, sort of the post-PASPA thing, and now each state is realizing that in North America that iGaming needs to be a part of the proposition for the most part. I think that that's something that will continue and a trend will continue to happen. And I think that when you look at South America and they realized with Brazil, starting in sports betting and then going, actually, iGaming should be a part of this as well. I think that just the fact that people are being sensible thus far and approaching it in a sensible way makes it even more exciting for the industry. But then it also should make that a lot more exciting for players and for the people, because not only are they going to be protected going forwards, but then they're going to be able to get the right offerings. And then there's so much more positive that can come with doing this in a controlled way. And thus far, it seems like that's what the governments and the regulators are looking to do in those markets. Obviously, there's the nuances in terms of that, but that's only a positive thing. And when you have countries like Brazil doing that and making changes, in Europe we've had countries that have made changes post regulations and things. These are the sort of things that, as governments kind of move forward, that's what makes it more exciting. And I think that's what's probably for me one of the most exciting parts about not just South America and North America, but just globally. I think that the people waking up and realizing that is only going to lead to a good thing for players and for the industry.
All right, thank you so much, Michael.
Yeah, I echo everything that's been said already as well. I think I don't know if it's the first, but definitely one of the first sort of regions. I think to introduce Lotto back in the whatever more than 100 years ago. So there is definitely an affinity to gambling and sort of a cultural space there that I think is there. Obviously, like Jamie mentioned, the sports scene is massive. The football scene is massive. So there's a lot of cultural readiness, if you will, for the gambling space. I think they have matured a lot. Regulations looks good. Payments situation is starting to sort of fall into place in most markets. It's not the Wild West that maybe it was just 5 years ago. It's really moved quite a bit. The main payment provider in Brazil is owned by the central bank, so that says quite a bit, right? Compared to where they have moved to. For us as Livespins, working with streaming, it's also a fantastic market for influencers. There's a lot of them. There's a keen sort of culture of it, and also from an end consumer perspective, they still carry a lot of influence, these influencers in the market. So yeah, we're really excited.
All right, so Chuck, out of your point of view, as you guys also provide esports, which is also big in Brazil.
Correct. I mean, for us, first off, I'd like to echo kind of a little bit what Michael said, because the culture in and of itself in the LatAm market very much is vibrant and kind of focused around the sports, and specifically kind of some of the sports that we provide in our esports offering, whether it be eFootball Battle, esports football battle, and that sort of thing. We do really well down there. The other thing that I find really impressive about the LatAm market is their willingness to embrace technology. When you're talking about like Brazil alone with over 200 million people, but you see the amount of mobile devices that are located in Brazil, it makes it a great opportunity for those of us in the iGaming sphere to be able to really kind of exploit that potential there. So I think, that's what makes it really exciting. And I think at the end of the day, there's going to be some growing pains specifically around the regulatory standards that are in place that people are going to have to adjust the ebb and flows. But at the end, I think it will kind of, there'll be some homeostasis to it, that basically where everybody kind of levels off and it really starts to be able to be a regenerative revenue stream for everybody without any volatility. So I think that's kind of the biggest key component for us. And of course, us being the fact that we focus primarily on, let's say, FIFA-based games, it's a great market for us.
All right, so I strategically left Allan to answer last, because I also want to introduce the next question. Allan being probably the defender of North America. So So Allan, before you reply,
Actually,
make sure
ironically,
you...
I live in Quebec, so I have no affinity to the U.S. nor to Ontario. But good for them all. We'll just
Yeah.
continue to suffer here under Lotto Quebec's purview and then the gray market.
All right. So before you reply about the importance of Latin America, now also make sure to answer this question: does the opportunity surpass that one which was on the table in North America? Sorry.
Okay, so to answer the first question, I think for us in the user acquisition space, it's the single largest opportunity to come out of this industry since the US regulated. I think obviously Brazil is massive. I think there's a whole bunch of other countries within the South American sphere that present big opportunity for affiliates, for paid media, et cetera, that are incredibly interesting to us. Whenever a country regulates, you tend to be able to do a lot more things, white hat on ad networks and buying platforms, which you traditionally couldn't do. So, for our agency business, obviously very excited there. I think Kevin hit the nail on the head a little bit. It does seem fun that the industry is starting to learn from each other and take guidance in terms of how they regulate. We've seen, I don't want to use the word horror stories, but we've seen issues with regulation across a lot of European countries who tend to sit there and say, we're going to make our own regulation. We don't really care about the outside noise. We're going to do what we want, and then have come up and failed kind of miserably along the way. So I think the fact that Brazil seems to have learned and taken guidance from what's happened around the world is incredibly kind of inspiring for future regulation across new countries. So we're excited for that. When it comes to comparing, South America to the North American industry and do they cannibalize each other? No, I personally don't think so. I think if you look at kind of the worldwide gaming sphere, I think when North America or when the US first regulated, we took a lot of kind of European operations and said, okay, we're going to transplant these into the US and they're going to become US operations and we're going to run them how we've run European operations. And we've seen that fail in some instances. And then for some businesses, they've been able to adapt along the way. But the opportunity in the US continues to be massive because number one, iGaming is not regulated outside of basically 3 relevant states. And as that continues to grow, you're going to see massive growth there. If you look at Canada, Ontario, from a promotional standpoint, is kind of in a mess. And I envision you're going to see Canada start to become a little bit smarter there. But to me, just the kind of vastness of the South American market presents such an opportunity that I think you'll start seeing operators, media companies, providers, et cetera, basically have to expand their operations to be able to adapt to it. But they both present such big opportunities. I don't know how they can cannibalize each other. I think you're going to start seeing more innovation because of it, because there's certain things that a South American bettor or casino player are going to expect that's different from a North American player, but you'll start to also learn how you can adapt across both. So no, I don't see them cannibalizing. To be fair, I see it probably welcoming more innovation along the way as we start to think differently on how the industry grows, which is something we probably hadn't seen as an industry for a long time until the US regulated. So I think it's exciting. But I'm really interested to hear what some of the other people on the panel say, because I come from a user acquisition sphere where I think it's all exciting and new markets are great. There's a lot of stuff we can do, but there might be challenges that I'm not really thinking of.
All right. So the next question, and Jamie, you can start by answering. In what areas is LatAm more attractive than the US and Canada?
That's a hard question because I don't know that it's more attractive. I just think it's exciting because here we're moving on, growing globally. And for me, having been in the industry for so long, my biggest thrill is to see, sports betting and iGaming getting off of the gray markets, becoming regulated, and making sure that that people get the access to really cool apps, really cool games, anything to make the sporting event more exciting. So I think that I don't think it's going to surpass the US. I think what it's going to do is I think everybody's going to learn from the US and from other markets, like the US learned from the UK and all of that. I think we're all learning from each other and making really the best product that we can for everybody globally. And that's going to be different. Your app is going to look different. You have to be localized. You have to look at who you're, if you're a Bet365 coming into Brazil, you need to make sure that that's going to look different from what your other apps have looked like. And I think at the end of the day, if the product isn't right, the people will tell us, right? So I think that it's going to be a really exciting market, very complementary market. And I think, to Allan's point, I think the innovation is going to be really huge.
All right. Kevin, what's your take on this?
So coming from the iGaming space and the casino and RNG-based space, I mean, I think that when you look at the US has got a lot more than you look at the stats of the games that have performed well in the US thus far. You'll see sort of kind of almost like subjective, but as a trend of kind of more traditional slots, land-based casino games. And then these and obviously the table games and so on and so forth that you have. These games are obviously infinitely popular in the US, and the US are very used to being in the casinos. But obviously in South America, that obviously it's still having the casinos, but as the population is expanding and growing, you've got sort of kind of a lot more of a younger dynamic audience that may not have been in the casinos. And so I think that when we're looking at it from an iGaming perspective, I think that it's not going to be long before you'll find in the US that they'll kind of almost kind of backfill and follow what is happening in South America actually into the US, but rather than the other way around, because in the US obviously it's traditional slots, and that's where the audience is, and you've got sort of a bit more of an older generation of players that are kind of used to playing these games, and okay, all right, they're depth the technology and so on and so forth, they're playing the content. But when then you look at the South American space, South America, the most popular game in South America is not a slot. Like, it really is significant that it is not a slot, or even a table game that is the best performing game in South America. And so then when you look at this, like the audience of the games that these people are playing, crash games, bingo based games, mind games, things like that. And so I think that that's then something that both audiences are going to start to learn from each other. Because as you have these crash games and these different content, they're going to be coming to North America, and you will have on the flip side, you have a bit more of the traditional slot games that are going to come back down towards South America, and there's going to be a convergence of both. And I think that you're going to be able to the content's going to be able to learn from both. But then that remains on part on the first topic that we were talking about originally, which Allan kind of followed up on, is that if you have the markets and that people are being sensible in both North and South America with what content can and cannot be played in said markets, that will allow players to be able to have access and for it to kind of adapt and the cultural nuances and niches that will start to come out in the different content. And I think that that's something that's going to kind of play out and be interesting. It's incredible how you kind of see, even if you look at operators that target the different South American countries, you can see the different slot games that are on top, and they're very different to some of the ones that are in the US, and the content mix is totally different. And I think that that's going to be something that you're going to see kind of play out. I'm sure, and I'm no expert, obviously Jamie and some of the other people on the call is better placed for this, but I'm sure that's going to be the same in sports betting as what we're seeing here in the iGaming space and the casino side.
All right. So, Michael, what's your opinion on this, especially giving the opportunity to speak about slots?
Yeah. Look, I think we're both looking at North America as well as Latin America, specifically Brazil. And look, if I should highlight one thing for us, it's working with streaming. There is research and statistics into how receptive are the end consumers to influencers these days, right? And I mentioned at the beginning, but just to give you an idea of scale. So the question was, how likely are you to, or have you purchased an item recently because a celebrity or an influencer prompted you to? And in Brazil, the response was 45%.
Wow.
So about half the population was influenced by a celebrity or an influencer, whereas the US, the response was 15%. So quite a significant difference in terms of what power in 2023 influencers have. So these are some of the things that we look at, and that, let's say bodes well for Latin America for Livespins. On the other hand, the US and the North American opportunity has a whole host of other things, like, for example, we can also onboard brand ambassadors, and they can, you can bet behind brand ambassadors. If you look at any of the larger operators in the US, they have Jamie Foxx, Shaquille O'Neal. There's a whole let's say host of A-list celebrities that you can work with. So yeah, I don't think there's good and bad. I don't think regulation wise, I would say the proof is still in the pudding in Latin America. I would hope it's a bit lighter than the US, but let's see where they land. They're just two completely different continents, and you just have to approach it with humility and research and understand what you're getting yourself into. I think that's the main thing, really.
Thank you so much, Chuck.
Yeah, I mean, getting back to the question, I don't think that the LatAm market surpasses the US. And just to echo what everybody else has said, I think that they equally both have their interesting points that everybody wants to maximize and exploit. I do think for the LatAm market, just the sheer fact that it is very much emerging, and the trends that are showing what is the estimated growth financially over the next 4 years is quite astounding. I mean, if you're looking at quadrupling by 2027, the overall financial performance in the iGaming sphere, then for me, that's pretty astounding. But again, as Michael, getting back to what Michael said, the proof will be in the pudding when it comes down to the regulatory standpoints and how much of that will be stifled. But what we've also already seen that, back in July, when Brazil went ahead and implemented the 18% tax and then all the donations on top of it, what the byproduct of that was that the gray market started, making a resurgence. And there was a warm embrace for the cryptocurrencies and being able to go through that. So I think what will be really interesting, in getting back to some of what Jamie and Kevin have both kind of alluded to, in the fact from the regulatory standards, is, making something that is sensible along the way, and being able to adapt and adjust once those, once you understand kind of where you need to go from a regulatory standpoint. But also the other thing is, culturally, unlike, I'm from the US, I'm from Texas, and I know that people from the North or the Northwest, Northeast, we call them Yankees, and that sort of thing. And there's culturally some differences, but not to the extent that you experience in Latin America. I mean, you jump the border, and, whether it be from Brazil or you go down to Peru, and, it's completely different, kind of culturally all the way around. So I think that, it makes it very interesting, but I don't think it will supersede the US market, as US will continue to grow as more states continue to regulate, come on board, and eventually I think that will be on par. And plus, not to mention the fact that, two different sets of really primary sports interests. In the US, you've got baseball and football, American football. In LatAm, you, of course, have some crossover, but generally speaking, European football is king still. So that's what's very interesting.
All right. So yeah, most probably you need a good localization when it comes to LatAm. So yeah, it was a game changer, because during, in contrast with the US, they also included both sports and casino in the gaming regulation. So how important is Brazil's decision to include both sports and casino in the new gaming regulations? Who would like to take on this?
I can start. I just wish that, the US would follow that, because it's crazy to me that we're not going hand in hand with sports betting and iGaming. It just, how they can feed into one another, how they, you look at the FanDuels and the DraftKings that started with, having DFS as a database, and then being able to pull from that database and pull over to sports betting. And then they're doing the same thing with, iGaming. I think that was such a great decision. Also, if we're being realistic about margins in sports betting, they are lower. Whereas with iGaming, you are going to have higher margins. So you're talking about higher, taxes coming in, and funding more schools and roads and, infrastructure and things like that. So I just think to me, it seems like a no-brainer that you should have both. I don't understand why there's a slow progress in the US to, where you have half the states have it and half don't. But I think we'll get there, but I think that's a really positive thing that they put that in there immediately, that, both are legalized. And again, we've got to get everything off the gray markets. We need to have it regulated. As long as we have the gray markets, we can't help with responsible gaming. There's just so many different things that, by making that access there, it helps with marketing. It helps with, just everything. So I don't know if you can tell, but I'm very excited that was a part of what they put into the bill.
All right, Allan, you want to add something?
Look, to touch on what Jamie said, I think, yes, obviously as a marketer and just in general, I probably speak for everyone who's on this panel, that it's a no-brainer that everyone's happy that iGaming was included in the regulation. Because it just opens up a lot more opportunity. It opens up a lot more budget and margins for brands to go there and be successful, and thus innovate and be able to provide kind of best-in-class experience for players. I think when we look at the North American market specifically when it comes to iGaming, and I'm no expert here as a Canadian, but I think Chris Grove has said this multiple times publicly. At the end of the day, the way that the US looks at iGaming versus sports betting is that sports betting is not really gambling, but casino is just straight up gambling. And then there's also a lot of intricacies with, the tribes in the US, and they own a lot of the ability to be able to gamble on casino in specific states. And it's just a lot more of an intricate process to get iGaming approved. And obviously we all sit here wishing that it would be approved state by state tomorrow. But that remains, I guess, to be seen. But for us, I think on the marketing side of things, there'd be a lot less excitement across a lot of networks, affiliate, media buying companies if iGaming was not included, just because of the sheer ability to be able to get a lot more aggressive in a market where CPAs are higher and brands can turn a profit a lot quicker, and be able to work with a lot more partners. So for us, music to our ears, and I think to any marketer who's watching this, super excited for the ability to have iGaming included. And also, to be fair, I think it opens up more opportunity on the sports betting side of things, right? You have more opportunity for cross-sell. You get people who have an affinity to casino who would never place a sports bet, or vice versa, into your ecosystem. So it's a lot more. It makes it a lot more interesting on what a brand is able to do across their entire portfolio of products, as opposed to just being specific to sports betting. And you limit a lot of the market when it comes to potential customers.
Thank you, Kevin or Michael. Who you want to go?
Yeah, no, I'll take on. I think that if you truly want to get rid of if you want to make the right tax and make a new regulated market make sense, having both sports and iGaming is definitely the right thing to do. Because if you've just got sports, then the operators that are there have got higher costs, and then at which point then just by the nature of having to pay the tax, which is fine because the operator's accepting that, but yet at the same time, then if they're then competing against people that have got what would then be considered black, and they're attracting players because they can still offer casino and the white operator can't, then they've no longer got an advantage. So they're great, I've got this license, but then they can't actually do anything with that license because in terms of competing against the operator. So they're not only taking on the additional tax costs and the additional marketing costs with a product that's not as strong, but then they're also then coming up against kind of a lot more a lot more risks internally on themselves. So that's the reason as well why, as the way that I believe that you know, a lot more companies and operators are excited as when iGaming is included, because then they're no longer competing, and then players, they'll naturally go to the regulated sites. Of course they will. They want to be protected. They want to play with in a legal and fair place. But if they are casino players and they can't play casino, then they may be seeing on that sports book or on the black site that they may be playing on a better price than they may be seeing on the ones that have got the white market, and that then all of a sudden doesn't seem fair to the people that have gone into that white market. So I think that there's a lot behind that, and that's obviously, you know, if you truly want to try and push out the black market, that's the best thing to do, is to bring both. And that then makes that license more valuable to each operator that's coming in, as we say, through the different values from players' perspective and so on and so forth. And so it's not only better from a player's perspective, but then it also doesn't have the drawbacks of the fact that you're competing on what you would consider an uneven playing field, because it's no longer then even in terms of the people that want the operators that are trying to do it right versus other operators that may not. So that's kind of, I think, what is the thing that, as Allan kind of eloquently put, is that you do have the political kind of influence that many different states have found in America, and that's been the same case in Europe and so on and so forth. So, you know, there is that other thing that's then there, and is this being used as a political game or not? And that's why South America is so exciting, is because, okay, all right, fine, there is obviously politics then involved, but they seem to, the Brazil kind of thing was actually, everybody's like, oh, finally sense is prevailing, you know, like, it's kind of, I think that as an industry we all kind of said it as well at the same time, which then makes us more confident about that as anybody going into that market, that, you know, that, okay, we can invest here, and it's not only just marketing and buying, it's not only operators, it's game providers, it's everybody, it's the whole ecosystem that comes around it. It's like, yes, we're in, you know, and then it makes a better value for players and everything all in one go. And obviously that's harder to move to, because it's a big coordination across a lot of things, but making sure that you have that kind of makes it a lot more exciting. And that's the reason why why all of us, I think, that are there and excited by that part.
All right, so Jamie is excited, Allan is excited, Kevin is excited. Michael, are you excited?
Yeah, definitely. I was just gonna, I 100% agree with what Kevin just said. Just to take a practical example, right? I mean, had it been sports betting only, once you acquire a license, part of that is obviously, at least in most markets, also access to advertising, and that's part of the reason as well, right? So you would see all these operators start advertising and sort of, let's say, becoming part of you know, the population's everyday life, you know, billboards, TV, whatever, they will start seeing sports betting. But then they get attracted, they get comfortable with the gaming, they open their accounts, etc., and they find no iGaming, no casino. And I mean, we're 2024 soon. The crypto casinos of the world, or any black market operator, is literally a click away. So the regulators, even from a consumer protection point of view, the regulators are sort of opening up the floodgates, but you can't have the whole cake. You have to, you know, go through Google or some other engine to find that secret sauce. So I think that's a dangerous path for the regulators to take. So yeah, really happy to see them regulating both. I think it's a no-brainer for the industry as well. All right, Chuck, you too?
Yes, definitely. I mean, completely agree with what Kevin said. I mean, the advent of additional regulation, you know, on both segments of the iGaming sphere, basically just breeds integrity and confidence within a particular market, and takes out some of that uncertainty about entering into the new market. I mean, not that we as Better have ever been risk averse by any means, but we do play it a little bit conservative when we don't see any kind of let's say statutory regulations in place. So we prefer to kind of make sure that we operate within the legal bounds. So I think, you know, generally speaking, long term, that will also bring further technical innovation and, let's say, infrastructure providers that will then help support the games that, you know, we want, and that ultimately at the end of the day the client wants. So I think it's going to be, I think it's paramount to have the regulatory standards in place as long as they're sensible. But when they're not sensible, then that's, as I mentioned before, then you will see the advent of the gray markets creeping back into the overall big picture. And, also at the same time, it's about, what is the, at the end of the day, are we regulating essentially what the end user really wants, or are we just stifling it? So, I agree with it. I think it provides integrity and stability. So I think we should move forward with it.
All right, Allan.
Zoltán, can I add one thing to what Chuck
Sure.
said and Kevin said earlier? I think when we talk about integrity, the other important piece about having iGaming regulated and when new geos come on board, and hopefully we see this in the US, is sports betting has now become an entertainment product. It's not a game of skill. And I say that in the way that US operators right now, because iGaming is not regulated and their marketing and their margins are so thin, if you're a winning better, your accounts are being banned basically instantly across the entire US, right? So there is no benefit for someone who is call themselves more than a recreational bettor, someone who actually is able to turn margin and look at this as some sort of, path to making money. Those accounts get banned because these operators don't turn enough of a margin in specific geos, and they just want to be making money. Where if you have casino regulated, maybe there's more margin in the system, and you can actually let everyone be part of the ecosystem, because it's not only if there's no iGaming, the black market's going to thrive. It's also anyone who's a skilled bettor is being forced back into the black market because a lot of these regulated, a lot of these regulated brands just won't take their money. And again, this is kind of a tangent and not really having anything to do with South America, but I'm going to go ahead and assume we're going to see the exact same thing in every geo that regulates, that as someone starts to win, they're banned, and then that just continues to let the unregulated market thrive. So I hope that some of the these regulators start looking at, because it's not a fair system, and I think it's something that probably needs to be written into regulation eventually.
All right. So, Kevin, you wanted to add something.
I'm happy on my mute button. All right.
Okay. So let's do a short exercise then. So there are 33 countries in Latin America. So besides Brazil, where do the other Latin American opportunities lie, and why that market? So each of you can give 2 markets. Jamie.
I'm gonna let someone else take that one first.
All right, who wants to go first?
I'm happy to go first.
Go ahead.
For us, and specifically, this is from an experiential standpoint, and this one it dovetails nicely off of the previous question. Is for us, it would be Chile, and Peru. Not so much Argentina, because Argentina has the different districts or regions within the overall country. So there's diversity of regulation within each one of those particular ones. But it seems to me thus far, the Chilean and the Peruvian markets have and they're implementing some new gaming regulatory standards, of which that are requiring, let's say from the casino aspect, we have to provide our certifications, as well as the same time we have to work with a local established operator within that particular country, which again, going back to the fact of providing the at least the stability and the comfort of being able to move forward. Now, I mean, there are some increased costs as a result of it, as with every implementation of new regulatory standard, but it's not that significant when you look at it in the balance of, do we feel confident moving into that market that we're not going to wind up getting taken advantage of? So I think, that's, and also from a regulatory standpoint, they are also looking, it looks like with sports betting and casino at the same time, if I read the regs correctly. And that kind of, lends back to what Allan said, that cross acquisition capability and getting some, some kind of potential revenue through both verticals. because, you know, when I first entered the iGaming market, there was never much cross-pollination between casino and sports betting. You know, they were usually pretty well segmented, and very rarely did you see any kind of one taking advantage of the other. But now you're starting to see kind of that that mutated bettor that is basically interested in both verticals. So I think it's really interesting for us. But those are the two markets that we look as the primary ones that we're gonna go after.
All right, who wants to go next? Michael.
Yeah, I can go next. I think there are two markets, really. One is called regulated revenue, and the other one is called pre-regulated revenue, as the new darling term in our industry is. So look, depending on what kind of company you are, your public versus private status, risk appetite, etc., that will determine which of the two you're looking for. I would say with Brazil now joining regulations, the pre-regulated batch is getting smaller by the month, or by the year at least. But yeah, there's still plenty of opportunity. But really and truly, I think that's the differentiator. What is your company policy, company situation, and what are you comfortable sort of working with as an entity, really?
All right, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, really, new markets for the majority. Well, new markets, new regulation is effectively new business. In terms of for many people that are taking a conservative approach, and so any new country or state that kind of opens up across South America and North America, but it's across South America, obviously, the topic of this conversation is a very important one for us, and the ones that I would get excited about. Having said that, I'm always I like to work with our partners across all of the states that they're live in, when they're in sort of, we have a North American client that's from Ontario all the way down through Colombia, and the US states in between. So, these are the markets in South America that align with our strong partners in both North America and in Europe are obviously exciting to us. So Colombia is one of those at the moment, which is quite an interesting market, even though it's been around for some whiles. And it's got its connotations and regulations from an iGaming perspective very similar to Spain, which obviously we're also working. So it's all of these things, as kind of Chuck alluded to, is in terms of if there's a market that's kind of similar to another one that you can adapt and the cost is low, then that makes it a lot better opportunity. So for us personally, any new state or country that's regulating in South America is exciting for us, and the ones where our partners are already, and that we can expand into those additional markets as we get the right content and the right nuances for those different markets. And it's something that we've been trying to strategically do across the last couple of years.
All right, Allan.
I think Michael hit the nail on the head there when he talked about pre-regulation and regulation. I mean, obviously, as a company that does user acquisition, we prefer regulated revenues, but outside of unregulated US, because we risk losing our licenses, we're kind of happy to work wherever we're able to make some money. You didn't hear that me saying that publicly, but we're we'll get creative in the kind of geos that we have to be. Obviously, a pipe dream and big wish is Argentina. A lot of people say not happening for a while, but you never know. We might see staggering results come out of Brazil and start being able to change regulation in other geos. And then some of the smaller ones, I think Chile was something we were all pretty excited about here, pre it getting kind of slapped on the wrist back in September. So I think that's an interesting geo. And I just think the opportunity in Mexico, just given the size and kind of wealth and the rest of that, I don't know if we consider that South America, we might consider that kind of central, but I think there's good opportunity there, even though it's a little bit convoluted. But I think, as everyone said here, any new geos are obviously very interesting. For us, it just comes down to, are you publicly traded? Are you not? Are you looking to exit? What's the goal of you as a business in terms of where you're going to focus on?
All right, thank you so much, Jamie.
I think, to piggyback on what everyone else has said, I think the pre-regulated and regulated markets, I think, you look at, as we've been talking about the whole time, Brazil, the vote is tomorrow. Let's see what happens. And I think too, with Colombia already being live, I think that's one to watch and one to learn from, and to watch, you know, how do you localize, how do you use the learnings that you have to go into the pre-regulated market and make sure that you're bringing the best product forward.
All right. So my next question is about the challenges that can occur. So what challenges can operators and suppliers expect when they're bid on Brazil or maybe even in the wider Latin American market? And is there something unique about this region? Jamie, since your microphone is on, you can maybe.
Sure. You know, I think it all comes down to the product, right? So the product, what may work in Ohio is not going to necessarily work in one of the LatAm markets. And so I think that the product really is going to be the marketing tool for you, right? It needs to be ease of use. It needs to be something that people feel very comfortable. It's localized. The games that people like to play, the sports that people follow need to be on the front page. It needs to be, you know, just really highly specialized to, let's say, Brazil, and what excites that population. I think too, figuring out the marketing spend, it's not going to be the same. Let's not race to the bottom with the promotions. Let's not, you know, go crazy with, you know, giving. This is a new opportunity to maybe to refine how we market and not say that everybody gets $1,000 sign-on bonus, but instead, you know, doing some more interesting, intricate, targeted marketing, using these PAMs with, you know, bonus engines and things like that to really look at who the players are and to retain them. I think that's going to be a big part too, is, you know, as you get, the market gets flooded, how do you retain your players? And I think that's going to be, you know, something that they're going to have to watch. And then, you know, if the regulations are saying that you can't sponsor games, or if the regulations are saying that you can't advertise here, that's going to be a problem. So it's going to have to be something that is closely watched, and you're going to have to be able to pivot and adapt as you go into those markets.
All right, Kevin, what's your take on this?
Compliance and logistics are going to be two challenges for gaming suppliers. If you think about it depends on how the regulations adapt and how things evolve from there as more markets become regulated. But US state by state, having silly things like having to have a server in every single state, that's a logistics thing. There's going to be a logistics challenge for some people, and some people it won't be a logistics challenge. It'll be like, okay, all right, fine. How are the rules going to be adapted to things like cloud-based hosting versus on property versus local servers? All of these kind of questions are kind of in line with the sort of compliance logistics area that need to be addressed as any company goes into this. And I think that one of the issues that you kind of have, and it's great for companies that are kind of maturing and a reasonable size, because once you've got to that reasonable size, you can have kind of cost of benefits. You can have people that are responsible for those. But, you know, you've got to try and keep up with the regulations. And last year we had, like in Europe, just several countries all kind of changed their regulations quite aggressively. And as you want to adapt and grow in additional markets as well, you want to try and be able to do that. And so the big guys who have got large compliance teams, logistical people, and things like that, it makes it a lot easier for them. Somebody like ourselves who are on the smaller side in comparison, it's a challenge that you have to kind of constantly remember. And then, you know, being in compliant with the rules is very, very important for the majority of companies, as it is very much strongly is with us. And so then you've got to kind of got to tread that line of how do we make sure that we're hitting the logistical things? Is it in line with the rules? And then have the rules changed? And did we get that? Was the compliance guy on holiday last time that thing come through? You know, like, has that all gone through the system? And so processes, procedures, logistics is a challenge that we continually are trying to battle, and that's great because that helps us go forwards. But it's just, you know, it's kind of also one of those burdens where you've got to always be on it. And I think that then, you know, it's kind of got to that point where with the amount of regulations, and that's why sensible regulations where they're adapting and where it's in line with other things makes things a hell of a lot easier for suppliers, and it makes it a hell of a lot easier for suppliers not to mess up. And it's not just suppliers, it's operators, and it's everybody. And so I think that that's something that, you know, as the markets kind of evolve, and certainly with the regulations changing in LatAm, these are going to be two of the hurdles that we have. But that's just two of the hurdles that now, you know, part of being in all of the regulated markets that we have in Europe, ISO 27001, and all of the adaptations and changes that we have that we continually make every day as part of that. So you have to live and breathe it. That will make it harder for new people to come into the market in future, separate from what you're trying to say, which is a great thing for somebody like ourselves, and the less so for other people, that new joiners. It's going to be expensive for people to get going. But I think that compliance and logistics are going to be something that we will continually have to kind of ram home with that in terms of our team and in terms of our setup and in terms of our business strategy. And it's kind of sped up over the years with the significant changes in new regulated markets, which, don't get me wrong, is 100% a great thing. It's something that's now no longer the thought is grow and it's now, okay, all right, we've got to make sure that we're in line with everything, and that everything and that it's considered. And so making sure you've got that considered approach with that is important.
All right, Allan.
Just to really kind of continue on what Kevin said, because I think he put it really well. You need to make sure that you have the expertise internally to be able to hit on a new market. I think this industry tends to get a little bit of a shiny object syndrome. You know, we have a new geo. We need to be there right away. We need to be competitive. And let's all be honest here. Brazil is going to be, while the size of Brazil is massive and the opportunity is huge, the competition is going to be absolutely cutthroat there. And I don't think that it's necessarily a bad thing to not always be first in new geos. And I won't call out specific operators or suppliers, but you just need to look at the US market on how much carnage there was with early day operators, with B2B suppliers who weren't able to deliver or have the expertise in specific states or geos within the US, who ended up having companies that folded or had to pull out of the North American market because they just weren't ready. And you have a lot of B2B suppliers and operators who came to the market late, who are being very successful now because they took the time to properly get ready for it. So I think that's incredibly important when you look at businesses. Make sure that you're ready. Make sure you have the expertise. And if you're not at one of these massive companies and you don't have the resources to be able to do it, just make sure that you think about it before you enter some of these new geos, because you could end up spending a lot of money and hurt yourself more than you're going to benefit yourself. And I'm not someone who advocates to playing scared in this industry. I don't think it's a scared thing. I just think we need to make sure that you're prepared when you go into markets that are of this size. So, all
right, thank you, Michael.
Yeah, look, a lot of it has already been said. I think before product, before entry, before anything, I'm a big advocate of research, and I think we do that way too little in our industry. So yeah, especially from an operator point of view that sits on the advertising side and the marketing side of things, like really hope to see 5 to 10% of the marketing budget being spent on properly understanding the population, their needs and wants, and how we can respond to that as a brand. And I think also, look, I mean, we underestimate, a lot of people underestimate or think, well, non-US citizens think of US as a block, right? As one country almost, right? And they, at least it's English language and Spanish as well. But if you look at Latin America, it's an entire continent. There is many countries. Each country has several languages, different payment solutions, like Kevin mentioned, different regulations, technical requirements. It's a myriad of things that you need to understand. So yeah, so really taking the time to research and echoing what Allan said, especially as the smaller companies, Livespins included, focus is really crucial, because if you spread yourself too thin, that can really be detrimental to you. So yeah, understand what you're getting yourself into and do it well, I guess.
All right. So I just quickly Googled it. Sorry, Chuck, before you give your reply, there are 37 language families that have indigenous roots in across the continent of Latin America. So that's a lot of localization right there. Chuck.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the nice segue, because just to kind of echo a little bit about what Jamie said as related to not only from a product-based standpoint to be able to kind of increase that player retention, because as Allan said, it's going to be really cutthroat with all the new operators and suppliers moving into the industry, or at least into that particular market. It's going to be quite challenging. And from a customer-centric approach, when you look at some of the regs, kind of getting back to a little bit what Kevin had touched on, some of the regs are requiring, if you look at the Brazilian one, that you have to have your customer support located basically in Brazil, and it has to be Brazilian Portuguese speaking based. So now as you said, over 30 countries throughout and over 30 different dialects, I believe, or something, then or native languages, now spread that across just even a couple, and it becomes quite challenging. I mean, we as an organization, we operate globally, and of course, we operate in the Asian market as well as the European market. But predominantly, most of those markets all just generally operate on, there is a default English kind of backdrop that you can go to. But after spending some time in Brazil, that's not always the case. And Brazilian Portuguese is not easy to come by. We've looked, but unless you're from there. So I think that that's going to be a big challenge. And then ultimately, at the end of the day, for some of these, from a regulatory standpoint, requiring that you have a local partner. So it's going to be about finding that local partner that you have a great deal of confidence and comfort with and able to work, and the vision is aligned. So I think that those are going to be the other challenges. But again, as Kevin said, quite frankly, it's not dissimilar from anything that anybody's had to conquer in the European market, or whether it be any other regulated market. So nothing insurmountable, but definitely adds a little bit of spice to the mix.
All right. So my final question for all of you is what else does the region have in store over the next 12 months? Jamie.
No, it's going to be really interesting to watch. It's going to be interesting to see who comes into these markets. Who are the early adopters and getting in there first to market, seeing what they bring to the table and how it's accepted, and then how it evolves over the next 12 months. Seeing how regulation grows and changes, how this impacts, if it's done right, how do the people who are betting, the people who are wagering, liking the different sites, liking their opportunities. And I think we saw it in the US, and you're going to see it everywhere, but that first year is just such a massive growth stage, and it is such a massive getting your name out there, getting people to be on your site, getting the daily actives, so it's going to be frenetic and hectic, and people are going to be excited to see it. So I think this next year is going to be really fun to watch, and I'm excited to see then what it looks like 3 years from now.
All right, thank you so much. Kevin.
I think the adoption of content is going to be an interesting thing to kind of follow through and see what's going to be coming from South America. I think that nobody was, maybe some people, but there's many people. The popularity of different content in that region is significant in terms of other areas. And I think that from a game provider perspective, I think that that's something that's a really interesting thing, because you're seeing companies that are rising from pretty much nowhere, off the back of content, Crash being, Mines being another different kind of the content that can come available, and the different kind of niches of that there may be available from different game providers. I think that will be something that will be an interesting thing in the market, and I think that will ultimately spread across the world in terms of as people try and adapt and be in front in that market. That will help hit in other areas around the world where Crash is popular in many different places around the world, but South America is extremely popular, and it didn't necessarily start there, but there's going to be many different contents in future that will start there, and then they will spread everywhere else, because people are now going to realize that there is a set of a massive market of players that are going to be really intrigued and engaged in certain types of gaming experiences on the iGaming side. I don't necessarily know. There'll probably be many things in the sports betting side and other areas in terms of user acquisitions and the social stuff that Michael does. But I think that's going to be really, really interesting. Is just how the different contents will come, and they will now have an audience elsewhere in the world, and it will be taken back the opposite direction. So I think that's going to be interesting, is what can we learn from that market, albeit that will be a very kind of new thing, but that will then be something that we can take to the rest of the world as well as an industry, and I think that's going to be exciting.
Thank you so much. Allan?
I don't know if this will happen in 12 months, but I kind of hope that it does. I wonder, as one of the kind of, I don't want to say first countries, but probably the largest country of, I want to say, lower value customers when it comes to for an operator of this magnitude, if we start seeing, quicker innovation and personalization. We haven't really seen it in North America because player values are so high, and we keep talking about it and how it's going to help the industry. I just wonder in a industry or in a country where you have to extract basically every penny you can out of a user, and it's going to be incredibly competitive down there. If we just start seeing more innovation when it comes to personalization and trying to maintain loyalty with your user base, and keep them on product as opposed to searching for others, if we see that a little bit more quickly. Again, I don't know, but I would love it, because I think that would be big strides to have that adopted elsewhere a lot quicker.
Thank you so much. Michael?
Yeah, look, I think two things. So first of all, I think we should still remind ourselves that, Brazil and LatAm is still an emerging sort of marketplace. So I'm going to take the other seat. I'm going to say over the next 12 months, we'll see a lot of disappointment as well, and reality check from various suppliers and operators entering the market. And, it's being hyped so much at the moment that, and like you're saying, it's going to be so competitive. So someone is going to lose. Someone did not do their research properly. Someone do not understand the content landscape and will lose from that. So I think we're going to hear a lot of sighs in various boardrooms over the coming 12 months. And the second thing is more conferences. We'll definitely have more conferences happening soon.
All right, thank you. Chuck?
Sorry about that. Yeah, I would, I guess kind of what I would foresee happening in the next 12 months is maybe a greater push from, let's say, certain government bodies to go ahead and push more responsible gaming. Because from my experience with Brazilian market, it's very much a instant gratification kind of market. And even to the point that it almost, you even have to build into your modeling when you're going into that particular market, the ebbs and flows as related to when your players are going to have cash. And there's a very distinct reason for that. So I think that's one of the things that in the next 12 months, we'll see a lot more conversations around responsible gaming, maybe implementing self-limiting and those type of feature sets to be able to, let's say, mitigate some of it. I think that'll be one aspect of it. And then the other one that I hope is, and really at the end of the day, is innovation of product that basically will really cater to those specific, end users, let's say, desires. And, at least some opening to be able to really, from our perspective, since we do a lot of innovation as related to our, whether it be our markets that we deal with in our esport and our sports betting aspect of it, or with our particular table games, we want the opportunity to be able to kind of have a market to really be able to test those innovative ideas that we come up with and see if it works without having our wrists slapped too much. So that's kind of one of the main things that I would see coming in the next 12 months. Yeah.
Thank you so much. All right. So Jamie, Allan, Michael, Kevin, Chuck, thank you so much for your time for this session. It has been awesome.